All right, welcome everybody to the Essential Credentials Podcast, episode 5. I'm joined today by my buddy Greg.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And my buddy Alan.
Hello, everybody.
And today we're going to be talking about why people are getting into collecting 90s inserts. The crowd's starting to come over. They're starting to realize that this is the era of cards that are the most intriguing. And we're really going to dive into that today because Alan, who's kind of new into this, he's going to tell you about that. He's going to share his experiences of what brought him into this era and what's made it so exciting and enjoyable for him. So before we do that, I got to give a quick shout out. I know my grandpa's going to be watching this. He's not doing too well, but I definitely wanted to say thanks to him because he's the reason that I love the Mariners and I love baseball. He showed up at my house in 1995 with this My Oh My VHS back when all of us used to watch those. I'm sure we all remember. And it was the story of the 95 Mariners, and they saved baseball in Seattle, the Edgar Martinez double. I think every good baseball fan knows about that moment. And he really got me into baseball and eventually collecting baseball cards. So I hope you enjoy it, Grandpa. And hopefully you can learn a little bit of something, too, of why we love collecting cards still, even though we're older. So
Awesome.
anyways, Alan, thanks for joining us, man. It's great to have you in here because over the last 9-10 months, you've been really active in our 90s insert group on Facebook. I think Greg and I would agree. We love your enthusiasm. We love just seeing somebody new into this era, just completely blown away by how amazing all the cards are. And I think when I talked with Greg last time, it was really cool to say, gosh, do you remember, Greg, when you got back into it and how exciting it was to go learn about all these cards? So Alan, tell us a little bit about kind of your collecting background and what brought you to this era, the 90s insert era.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. I didn't expect to be invited on the show. I think I mentioned before, I'm one of the newest collectors in the Facebook group that we're all a part of. And so I don't know if I can bring a wealth of knowledge, but I can bring a perspective of what it's like to be a new collector joining this thing that you guys have all been a part of for a while now. And for me, I guess it starts with when I first came back to baseball cards. It was about a year ago. And I thought, man, I got to get back into Barry Bonds before he's too expensive for me to afford anymore. And for a lot of us who grew up in the 80s, my first baseball card that I ever saw was the 86 Topps. And the first baseball card I ever owned was 87 Topps. And I was thinking I could get a Barry Bonds rookie card or, pre-rookie card in basically the most iconic design from the 80s in my mind. I got to do it now or never. So I went ahead and got all these expensive PSA graded cards of Barry Bonds. And they were great. And I was like, man, this is a lot more money than I expected to spend. But if I don't do it now, I'll probably never be able to do it. But after I was done with that, I was like, man, that's a lot of Pirates cards. I wish I could get like a Giants card. And so I thought, of all the Giants cards out there, what would be like the closest thing to a rookie card? And I thought it's got to be 1993 Finest Refractors. And I'm somebody who knows almost nothing about the 90s, but everybody knows about that set. So I went ahead and got a nice copy of that. And I threw them all in the bottom dresser drawer and took them out every couple of days to look at them. And it turned out that I stopped looking at all my other cards. It was just the 93 Finest Refractor that I just kept staring at again and again. And I'm like, this is really weird, I had no friends to share my baseball cards with, so it's just me in a dark room looking at the cards. And that was the only card I was looking at. So I was like, man, maybe there's something to this. I got to go out and see if there is more stuff out there like this, stuff that people would appreciate across different categories of collecting. And so for me, it was like that was the initial reason I even looked into it. But I don't think I would have stuck with it because honestly, I joined the Barry Bonds collectors group on Facebook and I showed off my 80s cards and it was like crickets. And everybody else showed off their 90s cards, which I didn't even know anything about besides some of the obvious ones. And they were amazing, but it just never caught on. And I think the thing that made me as a new collector really get into 90s was this Facebook group that we're all a part of that you mentioned. And I think it has a lot to do with what you were talking about with your grandfather, which is that these baseball games and baseball cards, they don't mean nearly as much unless you have somebody to share it with. You know, it's the shared experience that really brought me to 90s inserts. And I think in a large part, it's because of the group that we're in, and in a large part because of you guys. You know, I pointed this out before, but Greg, you and Matt, you guys do a really good job of making sure we appreciate these beautiful cards for the cards that they are, not necessarily for, you know, what they're worth money wise, which is always very tempting to do. I mean, we've all been a part of it for a very long time, so we know that's always going to be a component. But you guys emphasize the beauty of the cards, and you guys emphasize sort of the camaraderie and the community, making sure you guys try to help each other out if possible. That is something that is infectious. And when I have the opportunity to basically help somebody get something they want, or share in their joy of having gotten something they want, that's like 70% of my enjoyment of these 90s inserts right now.
Right. Well, I mean, Greg, I'm going to throw this to you. Have you noticed when it comes to different eras, you got your vintage, your 90s, what we're going to call modern vintage, you got your, you know, new cards, this, you know, everything that's coming out nowadays, you know, 2005 and on. I feel like this group of collectors probably does the best of like coming together and helping each other out. I mean, have you noticed that?
Oh, absolutely. I was in a group. I'm still in the group, and it's a modern group. And I noticed there was a lot of there's a lot of people, thousands of people are in that group. And so if somebody posts something that somebody doesn't agree with, or it's a new person asking a question, a lot of people will get really sarcastic, and it end up being like a shouting match. And it just, I would look at the comments and think, man, what, like, this is not a good feeling. And so I kind of got detached from a lot of the baseball groups, because it seemed like people were just arguing or putting each other down. It wasn't just a good group. It felt like classic internet comment stuff, where you see on Facebook people just yelling at each other for no good reason. And I wanted to find a group that was better than that. And that's what, right around when I was starting to get into the 90s insert stuff, I think the Frank Thomas 96 Gold Refractor was one of the first ones that kind of kickstarted it for me, which I mentioned in an earlier podcast. So I was looking for a group like that. I just kept thinking, man, if I could find a group that just was in the 90s inserts, how awesome would that be? Just, you know, specifically in the 90s, I think that would be something I would be interested in. And when I found this group, people were posting, it was fairly active. And I noticed like just all kinds of posts. Nothing was negative. It wasn't people putting each other down. It was mostly just showcasing their cards with conversation in between. The conversation seemed to be lacking, but it's picked up quite a bit, especially with people like Alan and you, just making comments or asking questions related to a post, which is nice, because a lot of times you'll post a card and you'll see, I'm guilty of it as well. You'll see like, nice, awesome, cool. But then a lot of times Alan will post like a question or a follow-up, and it really kicks the conversation. And that's ultimate. I think what Alan was talking about is like the camaraderie and sharing knowledge with people, like that shared relationship and that shared experience really kind of gets you more involved in it. So you don't feel isolated with you got your collection in your house in your dark room by yourself. You don't feel isolated, because you got a bunch of people here that are actively asking you questions and are interested. It's not just the obligatory, oh, nice, that's cool, and they move on. They're actually interested and they want to know. And this group is very unique in that aspect, because we are all similar, but we're in it for like the better. I can't tell you how many times I've picked up a few Piazzas for like Josh Quirple, and send me the shipping and they're yours. Or No Mars, I'll do the same. Like, not much. I'm not trying to make $1 billion. I'm just trying to get the cards that I have or doubles to people who also want them. Right. So we can have that shared experience. So I think this group is very unique.
Yeah. I agree. I didn't know if you wanted to jump in that first, but
no, but I mean, yeah, he's absolutely right. I don't remember if you or I got in there, who got there first, Greg, because I feel like we kind of showed up at around the same time. But I mean, that's something that I'm really happy to hear you say, Alan, that and obviously Greg, and I've noticed it too. The camaraderie there is awesome. I mean, that's what makes collecting even better. You know, I get more out of my collection because I'm sharing it with guys like you, you know, and all the other great admins on our page. And there's so many people that are appreciative of it and also will drop knowledge. So can I ask this question, Alan? How much of your knowledge of 90s cards up to this point have you got from just being in that group and the Barry Bonds group?
You know, I do a lot of research that's just in my personality. So I learned about some of the biggest cards, I think, coming into the group. But I think the most interesting things I've learned have been since those biggest cards, because we all know the 6 or 7 elite cards that everybody wants that are worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But it's since I've joined these two groups in particular when I've learned about those smaller cards that are underappreciated. And I know you did a segment or maybe an entire episode about that sort of thing.
We did, yeah.
And it's that sort of thing that I found very, very informative. But just going back on one of the things you guys were talking about earlier, the vibe, the group is definitely important. And I think it's the people. It's definitely for whatever reason, you know, it's the moderators, the people who drop knowledge, the most informed people in our group don't look down on anybody else. So like if I ask a dumb question, I never feel like, should I ask this? Because I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Everybody's always there to help. And I think there's a couple of things built into the 90s insert situation that actually causes that. One of the things is that we all have our player that we are really into. I don't think that's necessarily the case in other types of collecting. Like in vintage, we all love Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle. We all want their rookie cards. We all want the cards that everybody else wants. We didn't grow up with them, you know? And so we're all sort of chasing the same cards. It's not some visceral connection we have with the player. And in modern, it's the same thing. Everybody wants like the Mike Trout rookie card, but people by and large, at least just from what I can tell, don't collect like a particular player that, man, they grew up watching and they've sort of idolized as a kid. So the fact that we each have our own player, but they share card design across all these players, I think brings everybody together, because even if it's a card of a player you don't really like and somebody gets an amazing card, like say, you know, like a Crusades green or something like that, and you know what it was like for you to get the Bonds in your hand and see it for the first time,
right?
Realize, actually, no, this is not played out. This is not overrated. This card is every bit as awesome as people have been saying. Then you can be happy for that guy who got the, you know, I don't know, the Tim Salmon or whatever player happened to be on the card. And you're like, man, I am really happy for that guy. I've never had a Tim Salmon card, you know, voluntarily in my life, but I am super stoked for this guy who just got it.
Well, yeah, you were saying with the shared experience, all those players are in the set, and so we each have our guy. So you're like, man, I got my guy. I'm glad you got your guy. So we're like in it as a group versus competitively trying to like haggle prices with each other. Like, I'll give you an extra 5 for that Trout rookie. I'll give you an extra 10 for the Trout rookie. You know, we're not trying to compete. We got an overlap of player collectors, obviously, because people collect Griffey and Frank and Barry Bonds, but you're still, for the most part, the group is sharing that experience where we're all happy that you got your guy, I got my guy. So it's a good experience.
No, that's the reason that I think many of us in the group are enjoying it the way we are, because, you know, for the most part, if you say you're looking for certain cards, people will tag you in other for sale posts in other groups, knowing that you're looking for that. I believe it was Barry Brewer. He tagged me in like 4 or 5 posts that this guy was selling these A-Rod cards, and I got about 3 or 4 of them for way cheaper than I should have. And, you know, we're looking out for each other. That is what makes this group so amazing. So I'm really glad you guys pointed that out, because I think I don't think that's the case everywhere. When you were talking about modern, I'm thinking, oh yeah, somebody just pulled a Trout. Nobody's going to be like, hey, you know, John Smith, I just pulled a Trout patch you're looking for. They're going to go, it's going straight to eBay because I want to make as much money as possible. Wow. That is what modern is mostly about. I mean, I don't want to hate on anybody that collects modern, because, you know, every now and then when I'm at school and I'm teaching and kids come up to me and they say, hey, do you collect baseball cards? I just got a Mike Trout card, like just the base card, and they're happy about it. So there's still a little bit of that existing, but I don't think it's nearly what it was like when, we were all collecting 90s as kids and nowadays either. So yeah, really, really cool. So kind of hopping into that, I talked about, selling your trout. You pull this one-on-one trout patch, which is a patch, if we can all agree on that. It's a card, the patch that came from a jersey he wore in a photo shoot, and then they cut it out and put it in the card, and it's a patch autograph. Right. What do you think, Alan, a little bit? Have you noticed a little bit something different when it comes to the value of the cards? We're talking about investing a little bit in cards. We chatted earlier. I mean, you look at vintage, and you're talking about that Barry Bonds rookie that you have, right? And you bought a PSA 10, and that is kind of holding steady value wise. What are your impressions of what the value is doing with some of these big time cards? Because you collect bonds, obviously. So have you seen like a trend since you've been getting into 90s?
Well, I've all but abandoned everything else but 90s recently. So I actually don't know what's going on in the market with that other stuff. But it's the reason I came in. I think it's fair to say that no matter who you are and who you collect, there's a component of investing in there. It's just a matter of what percentage it plays in your enjoyment of the hobby. And I know that when I first got back into Barry Bonds, I was like, I've never spent more than $50 on a card before I came back to baseball cards about a year ago. And everything was like $1,000. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And then I looked at the prices of everything else. I was just like, okay, this isn't actually that bad compared to what some of the other stuff is going for. And I thought Barry Bonds has always been undervalued. So I thought, man, this is the investment part of me saying, I better get in now. If I ever wanted any nice Barry Bonds cards, basically now's the time. It's never going to be cheaper than it is today. I have to get in. And of course, I'll track the value of those super expensive cards. You're talking about PSA 10, like O-Pee-Chee 1987, and the error card from opening day. Mm-hmm. So that's something that was at the forefront of my mind. I still love baseball cards. It's still a player that I love, but investing was maybe 70% of what I was thinking about when I got those cards. Mm. And it was what I was thinking about when I got my 93 Finest Refractor too. But, the enthusiasm of the group and the passion for individual cards themselves kind of made me turn a new leaf. And now I'm collecting with very little regard for how much things are going to be worth.
There you go.
I'm sure that most of these cards are not going to be worth a whole lot in the future, but they're worth a whole lot to me. Mm-hmm. And it's the memories of having shared these cards and the particular comments that I got and the stories behind who I talked to get these cards that are going to bring the most value to me. And I know that's super touchy-feely. And I understand that there is the component of, hey, if I get tired of some of these cards, it would be great if I at least recoup my money. Would be even better if I made a little bit so I can get another card I want. But when it boils down to it, right now, at least, we'll see. I've only been collecting about a year. Right now, investing is very, very far off in terms of my priorities.
Well, gotcha. Go ahead, Greg.
The good thing with some of these cards is you were saying we got our staples, the Crusades and the Finest Refractors, but in these posts, people will show off like the Ionics Awesome Powers or the All Etch Refractor, the smaller cards that you could theoretically pick up for $5, $10, $20. And you get those cards and they shine just like a Crusade. They shine just like a Finest Refractor. They don't have the rarity, but the aesthetic value is there. And having them in your collection is just awesome because you see them in person. You saw them in a video. You see them in person. They look amazing in person. And now you have it in your collection. And the good thing is you're not breaking the bank buying that card. You spent $20. Maybe you could recoup your costs. Get 10, 15, maybe 25. But you're not spending a ton of money to get this card and then hoping later on that you might not go broke trying to recoup your costs. So it's good because a lot of these cards that we want are not very expensive, besides the staples.
No, I think, Greg, that was a perfect segue, man. It's like you knew we were going or something, because what you're talking about is that this 90s era offers more variety than I feel like any era of baseball cards. I mean, I dare you to argue either way. Like, oh no, vintage has more variety, or oh, this new stuff has variety. No, if you're going to vintage, all of it was pretty much the same. I mean, there's some beautiful vintage cards, don't get me wrong. But then you look at now, all they're trying to do now is replicate what happened in the 90s as far as like making unique looking sets, insert sets, case hit inserts that aren't even like patches or autographs. I mean, they're just replicating what we already have in the 90s. And so, to jump right into that, I think the 90s has the most variety of any era, and pick a player. Obviously you want to pick somebody who's a little more well-known, like for instance, Joey Cora, who, I loved growing up. He is in like 1 or 2 insert sets every, so it's all base cards and parallels, which doesn't do a lot. But you pick a guy like, Alex Rodriguez, and even Tim Salmon, if you can believe it. He's actually in some inserts, and they all look different and unique. And I think, what's that, Alan?
It is hard to believe.
No,
I
loved watching him strike out when he was playing against the Mariners. Don't get me wrong. I think he was the last out in '95. That's right. But no, I think it's that's a huge talking point for us. And I did want to ask a question, Alan, because we're going to get into variety and like unique looking cards and so forth. Yeah. But what was the first card? Take away the 93 Finest Refractor. I mean, those are super well known. What was one of the first cards that you saw of Bonds, whether it was in the Bonds group or our group, the Facebook group we're in, that made you go like, oh my gosh, this is so unique looking. I really want to get my hands on one of these. What card was it that like totally got you like completely 100% in on collecting 90s?
Well, I think I mentioned that, it was 93, and I was looking for other cards that were going to be good investments. Like, I wasn't going to lose a ton of money if I was going to spend $500 on a card. I didn't want to be able to sell it for like $16 in 10 years or something like that. So that was my frame of mind going into it. But then I saw people talk about different insert sets, and the first insert that I went after since joining the group was this card here, which is like a $2 insert, because it just looked so badass, but I didn't even know what it looked like in person because I'd never seen it before. So when I finally got it in person, it was actually even better than I thought it was going to be.
Well, for our audio listeners, can you tell to everybody what card that is you're holding up?
This is the Epic's Moment Orange. So it's the least rare of the moments that you can get. It's the least rare color, I guess, right, of this insert. So it's not worth a lot of money. It's worth like $2, but it's gorgeous. And the refractive pattern, it looks like it's exploding from the center. Yeah. For those of you who have seen it, and it moves. It's one of these refractors that kind of like moves when you change the angle. So that's what got me into sort of these lower end inserts. Awesome. When I realized there are some amazing cards out there. And you're absolutely right about the variety. I mean, I can't even tell you, as a new collector, for somebody who didn't really collect at all in the 90s when all of you did, when many of you did, I don't have the same experience, the same shared experience as you guys, having pulled some of these cards out of packs. So that I'm missing. But what I do gain is the fact that I've never seen any of these cards before. So when I get a mail day in and I'm opening like a bubble mailer, it's like opening a new pack of cards. Like, in the new year when they release the cards and they don't have the base cards in the back of the box yet to show you at the LCS, and you don't know what you're getting. You have to open it to see. That's what it feels like for me as somebody who has almost no background in the 90s. Every card is a surprise. Some of them, not a good surprise, but most of them are spectacular.
Well, like if you're on eBay and you're looking at a card and they're just scanned, it's not going to show the pop on that very bond. So when you get it in hand, it's like a surprise because it does so much in hand versus the one stationary scan on eBay.
It's so true. And if I could just say, like, I can't remember when it was, but I think it was Matt's A-Rod cards that got put up as a banner for the 90s collectors group that were
That's
all
right. Mom, I made it.
That's how you know you made it. And you took a fantastic picture, which captured like the refractive quality of the card, and it just inspired me to go out and get the Barry Bonds Tech Reciprocal, which is one of my all-time favorite cards.
Love that card.
I own. I just absolutely adore this card, and there's only 100 of these. So if we're talking about how much things cost and what the elite cards are, that's one thing. But there are super rare cards out there that are like kind of ignored, and you can get them for a great price. And I get as much or more enjoyment looking at this card as I do, my most expensive Barry Bonds insert that you can name, 93 refractors, I guess.
Even like me and Matt, we're still finding hidden gems. Like we talk and know quite a few cards now, but there are still hidden gems to us that we're like, I never knew that even existed, or I didn't know this was a rare card at all. And it's still, we're always learning. It's the 90s produced so many different unique cards that it's hard to know everything.
I mean, go ahead, Alan. Go ahead, Alan.
I was just gonna say, you guys, have collected for a long time, and you guys are still learning. So you can imagine for somebody who has no background. I mean, every day it's like an avalanche of information. I'm trying to keep it straight, but there's no way to do it. But this is going to be a fun journey. I know now, because there's just so much more to learn as I go. This is not going to get stale anytime soon.
Who's going?
Okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
I learned the best way for me to learn all these cards and obtain knowledge about them was every time somebody posted something, I would check to see if Tim Salmon had a card, and then I would look to see who was in the set on Beckett. And so through that, it was almost like repetition, just trial and error, trying to figure out who was in what set. But the repetition of looking up that stuff really gives you a lot of knowledge. So I feel like if people are trying to learn, just looking up, oh, Alex Rodriguez, that's a cool card. Let me see if my guy's in that. And then you go on Beckett, and suddenly you start picking up who's in what they look like. And it's easier to recognize a card out in public or even on eBay real quick if you got 10 seconds,
And that's a great point. And that can be an amazing feeling or a terrible feeling, because there's about 4 or 5 insert sets out there. Let's take 96 Pinnacle Skylines, for instance. That set came out before A-Rod was like on fire in 1996. If he'd have been in that set, that card would be up there with my most wanted card, which I'm sure everybody in the group knows what that is at this point. But it would. I mean, finding out he's not in some sets, like for instance, I think, Alan, we were talking about this, Barry Bonds. What set? I mean, I know you're going to say it right off the top of your head. What set should he be in that he's not, that all of us are like enamored with from 99? Do you know what insert I'm talking about?
I believe that he's not in Ionics Holographics. That is maybe the best looking insert in existence, just from scans that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found that my favorite player was not on that card, I was like, oh my God, I can't even, what am I supposed to do now? I think I got to go collect a secondary player. So that's my plan. But that is, I haven't seen it in person, so I actually don't know if it's that great, but it looks spectacular even in scans.
Well, when I wish I would have known you about 6 months prior, because there was a couple A-Rods that went up on eBay, and but if I ever see another one, I mean, obviously, that's what we do for each other. I know you would definitely appreciate that. And then, I think Greg's going to make a custom Tim Salmon card of that, just to get Tim in the holographic set. He can replace Kerry Wood, right? Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, I'll hire Tanner to make one for me.
Hey, there you go. All right, Tanner, hope you're listening, man. We're going to hit you up for some custom holographics cards. So, yeah, I think, Alan, you touched on, just like having like a new box of cards coming in when you have a mail day. I mean, that really resonated with me, if I can just say so. I got a friend named Brant who sold me, at the time, my most wanted A-Rod card, which was the Fortune 15 refractor. I know Greg owns one of Nomar, right?
Yep.
And you've seen pictures of them too, Alan. I think it was in that banner shot that I had. But man, that card, scans could not do that card justice. And I remember when that thing came in the mail, he sent it with some other ones that I had picked up. He sent with some base and stuff. Oh my gosh, like that! It's so exciting opening just a package with a card in it, because those cards are so incredible to look at. And I had that thing on a shelf for as long as I could, because it just, it was so amazing to look at. So I think that's really unique when it comes to 90s, because you see a scan of a modern card. I don't think it looks any different when you get it. I mean, some of us have modern cards. I have some Doug Baldwins, and Greg's got a Larry Bird and some Barry Sanders and, so forth. I don't think there's anything that makes those stand out from a scan to coming into your, your living room, opening up the package. So I think that's another huge aspect of the 90s that make it so unique, is that, it's like a surprise, like when you get it in the mail, because you don't know how amazing it's going to look, when you get it. So that's an awesome point that you brought up. So what's your let's talk about goals for a little bit, Alan, because you talked about, because when I got into 90s, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, there's so many A-Rod cards. How am I going to like target what to look for? And because I didn't know, I didn't have like a set top 10 or top 20, I missed out on various cards that have been sold since then that I either didn't bid enough for, not knowing how rare they were. Like, for instance, the Pinnacle Inside Diamond from 97 with the die cut little edges on it. I missed one for like $15 when I first got in. I'm like, dang, that was expensive. Like, looking back, I'm like, what was I doing? Oh my gosh. Like, I could have gone like 50 and that wouldn't have been enough for that card. So how are you focusing on like what you're looking for? Do you have like a list that you're going for? Do you just pick off cards off the page? Those are really nice. I got to be on the lookout. How are you, like, where are you targeting your focus right now?
You know, I like to start small and then branch out, because there's just no other way of going about it when you know so little about the cards. I just wanted to back up to one thing you guys were saying earlier. I wanted to show this this Fleer Legacy 98 A-Rod that I pulled from a bubble mailer, and
I love I said that
on the group. And when I first saw it, I was like, I stopped talking, I think, in the middle of the video, because
I remember that
the shine was so dope, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking about how a lot of the modern cards are just cribbing or biting off a lot of the stuff that has been released before in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've seen some designs from like this year's product that looks exactly like the gleam pattern of this
think the Bowman Mega, the Mega boxes.
Yeah.
I think the Bowman does that.
That's all over modern right now. And I was like, man, this has been done already, guys. You know, like, it's too bad there aren't 2 or 3 companies fighting for, you know, the same small pot, because you might get some incredible designs from it. But that's the thing about, for me, like, I slept on this set because, you know, I was told by, you know, the people who are most knowledgeable that the most prestigious set is actually 97. So I was like, if I can't get the 97, the way I like to collect is I pick a type of card that I want, and I try to get the most, the rarest part of the rainbow first. I mean, everybody would like that, right? But I would like to do it first, just so that psychologically you get over the hump and you're like, okay, after this, now everything's going to be easier. You know, the first epics that I got of Bonds was the Emerald Moments, because I was like, okay, if I can get this, then everything else will come easily down the line. So I do have a list, and the list that I have is, I'm kind of ashamed because there are all these super prestigious, expensive cards that I'm never going to have a shot at. Like, one of the top cards on my list, I'm sure I'm probably never even going to see in person, is the 1998 Essential Credentials Now, that beautiful neon green card, which for Barry Bonds only has 2.
Wow, 2.
And
A-Rod's got 1, so there you go.
Who's that?
A-Rod's got 1, so somebody out there owns it, I think.
Well, you know, somebody in the Barry Bonds group just showed off that he owns one of them, so we know one exists.
It's got to be Ben, right? Benjamin Franklin. He must.
No, it's somebody who's not really known to like the Bonds group or the Bonds group. He's like new, so he just sort of came in. His first post was showing off that card.
That's typical in our groups too. You'll get a guy. Greg and I was just talking about that about a month ago. This guy came out of nowhere and posted like 8 1-on-1 Jeter, Flair, and Rivera's, like all these masterpiece cards, and then he's disappeared for like it's the rest of time.
I know. I mean, because I put a post in my Barry Bonds group that I'm a part of, that's like maybe my number 1 card that I would want to get, and somehow he dug it up from the depths of Facebook and brought it up as like, I think somebody once said that this card is pretty cool. And he was like, this is probably the best, most expensive Barry Bonds card in existence. I think we can all agree on this. I've been offered twice as much as I paid, but I'm not selling. Wink, wink. And I'm like, oh, boy.
That card would be, if that ever hit eBay through like Probstein or, you know, what's the other place called? I already forgot it. Yeah, if PWCC got their hands on that card and threw it up, it would go crazy. I mean, like absolutely crazy. You'd probably get shilled like nuts too, just to get the value up. But yeah, that would be an incredible card, man. I mean, the best way to get some of these rare cards for all of us, we all have our cards in our head that like, oh gosh, this would be a dream card, is through this kind of thing, either at a card show or at, hey Matt, I know a guy who's got this card. Go ahead and make a deal with him behind the scenes. Don't let it get to eBay, you know. That's about the only way a lot of us can get some of those cards. But
I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say, which is what I did, was I just came to grips with the fact that I'm just never going to get that Barry Bonds card. So I just had to get another player, you know, like I showed this off before, but I got the Larry Walker.
Oh,
I've never seen
nice.
these in person. And I just wanted to see if they were all they were cracked up to be. And they are. These are spectacular looking neon green cards. And it goes back to what we were saying before about like what I call the intrinsic beauty, the design of these cards. They're beautiful in and of themselves. In some ways, it almost doesn't matter what player is on there, as long as it's a player you like. And I can't say that I'm a huge Larry Walker fan, but I grew up watching him, and I liked watching him play, and I admired him as a player. So the fact that I get this card for 1/100th of the price that I'd probably have to pay for the Bonds, and be able to get sort of, you know, the side enjoyment of looking at it. I mean, I'm probably like 80% of the way there. You know what I mean? Like when you get a spectacular card, the excitement is overwhelming. I think Tanner Jones once put up a chart of like your personal enthusiasm for, you know, along the process of getting a card. And the most enthusiastic you are is getting it in the mail and then showing it off to all your friends. And then you pack it away. You may put it, you may mount it somewhere or display it somewhere, but the enjoyment drops as soon as you've gotten that card and shown it off.
Yeah.
It's on to the next one.
You know, it's almost like chasing. It's like a drug. You're chasing that high. You buy the card. You wait for you track the card. All right, it's in New York. All right, it's in Kentucky. Okay, today's the day. And then you get the card. You open it. You're super excited. Adrenaline, endorphins. Everybody sees the card. You post on Facebook. You comment. You respond to the comments. You like the comments, and then it's over.
Yep.
Like the card has been known, and now you just got the card. Like I got I need the future. This is the future. I need the now, but
gorgeous.
You know,
so sick, dude.
These are beautiful cards. I want the now. I have the future, but you're right about the opening the card and then it drops it.
Well, that's what makes the group so good, though, right? Because we get, how many times do you see cards get posted like, oh, just going through the collection. I really like these. I think I did that the other day with all the Circa Raves. You know, it was serial number. For anybody that's listening or watching that's not in the group, every Saturday we have serial number Saturday, and it used to be a bit bigger, but now it's usually like what Chris and Brant throw their Frank Thomases up there, and Zach, you know, they just get like a Frank Thomas war. But we always post the serial number card, and it was really cool to bring those out and show them off the progression as the years went on, and how the cards, you know, changed. And that's what makes our collections even nicer, is because we get to share them with other people and other people enjoy them. I think you hit that on the head right at the beginning of the podcast, Alan, and I think that it's one of the most important things, you know, is we're here to, you know, help each other out and appreciate what we have and learn about the cards. You know, I think you can get something from every member on the group. You really can, you know, and everybody's friendly. And I don't know if you've noticed this too. And I had questions, you know, like I'll see a card and I'm like, you know, what the heck is going on here? What is this card? Rodney or Joe or Alan and Nathaniel, they'll just pop in there and say, well, actually, this is the deal. This is where they came from. I mean, have you noticed that, how easy it is to get answers and how much people like helping?
Yeah, if you need an answer in the group, you will get it. Like I have to try to control my questions to usually the card that I'm asking about of the person who showed it, because if I had my druthers, I would just be knocking on Rodney's door, Nate's door, Alan's door, all of these guys, just asking them nonstop questions. I just have so many. And I do have a process, like Greg was saying, of sort of seeing a card, putting it on my list, going to Baseball Cardpedia, which I know that Rodney's a huge contributor to, and sort of researching the deal. But I don't know if it's my reading comprehension that's low or something, but there's a lot of words on that page, and sometimes I can't like fully understand what it's saying, because some of these numbering patterns and the way they distributed these cards are ultra confusing. And it doesn't matter how much you read, you kind of just have to see it in person. You have to get the Flair Legacy in hand and ask somebody, hey, is it true that, you know, that there's 4 different possible backs for each front? And that's not the case. It's just one particular front pattern is matched with one particular back pattern. And you need a group to sort of explain that to you, because I wouldn't really have been able to figure it out just from reading the Baseball Cardpedia page.
Right. Right. That's super, super true, man. I've had that same experience. I'm sure Greg can agree. We've all had that experience where we're like, I want to find more out about this. What's the deal here? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll tell you. But to kind of segue into sharing knowledge, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty excited to say this. The three of us are going to be in a place where we're going to be able to exchange knowledge with each other and hundreds of other collectors, and that's at the National. And I know we're getting kind of close to the end here, but I do want to say real quick for like 30 seconds how excited I am to know that not only am I going to my first National, but I'm going with some friends that are going to help me get even more out of the experience in Chicago this year. So really stoked to go and just check it out with you guys.
Yeah, I feel the same way. You know, I was originally thinking about just me and my girlfriend were gonna go. She was like, I might go to the show with you one or two of the days. I might hang out and do something else. And I thought that was cool. But having like some people who are really interested in cards, I think that's gonna add quite a bit, because now we're all gonna have that same experience, and we're gonna be excited about stuff, and we're gonna be able to share it and know what we're talking about with each other. So I think I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm super excited about it as well. I'm the latest ad, but I got to I was lucky enough to go to the National last year. It was basically kicked off my return to baseball cards, and it was in Cleveland, and it was an absolute blast. I went with my girlfriend at the time, and it was fine. You know, she came for a couple of the days. It wasn't a bad thing, but to go with friends, it would take it to another level. Problem is that everybody I grew up with in the 80s and 90s used to collect cards, but I don't have a single friend who I didn't meet through cards who collects cards anymore. There's nobody. And that's why I was talking about enjoying my cards in a dark room, because I do show my buddies these cards. They're huge sports fans. I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day, how of all the sports fans there are in this country, there's only a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of us who collect cards. And amongst us who collect cards, there's an even tinier sliver who collect 90s inserts.
Yep.
So I'm warning you guys, there's going to be inserts there, but maybe not as many as you would think, because modern is dominant there. It's like 70%.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going in with that expectation of, if I find, 5 cards, that'll be a success for me, because I've seen what card shows look like now, and it's vintage and modern, and everything in between is a blur.
Yeah, I'm going there expecting to, if I'm lucky. I mean, honestly, my expectations, I'm planning on leaving with nothing, because I don't think I'm going to find anything that's on my want list, like top 30 A-Rods. I doubt that I'll find it. And if I do, it'll be in like a bargain bin, and I'm going to have to spend hours looking for it. But thankfully, I collect Ichiro a little bit too. So if I'm able to find a rookie of his I don't have, I know he just retired, so maybe some people throw those out there, but I'm not expecting to find anything. But speaking of picking up cards, we all have something we do want to show off, right? That we did pick up recently. And I thought we'd end the podcast the way we have done in the past and show off something that you're really happy that you got in this week. Greg, you're going to go last, and then everybody will know why that is. So Alan, can you start us off here? Tell us something you got the last couple of weeks that you're super stoked about.
Sure. I'm all about the epics right now. And you know that the orange epics is one of my favorites.
Yep.
And I finally got a test issue season orange of the bonds that I showed off in the group before, which was amazing because it allowed me to complete the orange part of my rainbow, the first one I got to complete. But with that test issue, I also got the emerald. So this is something I've really never shown off to anybody before.
That's awesome, man.
Here now. And it's amazing. Supposedly, there's only from the seller I bought this from. He told me the rumor is that there's 5 of these out there for each player. I don't know how true it is. Unfortunately, I found out that he's also one of the main guys caught up in the trimming scam right now of all those high-end cards. He's one of the people that's going to be at the National, and people are already talking about what is going to happen now that all these scandals are breaking. But to just take it back to how happy I was about getting these 2 cards. I mean, I love this set, and I just need to find the purple now of this, and it'll be complete.
Awesome, man. That's incredible. That's a whole nother topic. We'll have to get into that some other time with the trimming of cards. Thankfully, most of us are good with what we have. But I had the pleasure of finding a card that Alan showed off 2 podcasts ago, and that was I was able to find the 99 Revolution. This is not going to pick it up. My camera is not doing a good job of it, but there's 49 of these only, and there's this really cool like embossed stamping on there. And we had another collector in the A-Rod group that I made. That there's like 30 people in there, but nobody posts anything yet. So hopefully that'll get going eventually. But Ken, shout out to Ken. Thanks, buddy. He held on to this for me for about 3 months. And this is the Shadow series out of 99. So these kind of go together. These are amazing. I don't know. I mean, these look good, but I think the blue is the best. And then I was able to finish the rainbow off by finding somebody who had the red online too. So really, really stoked about that. This might be one of the coolest sets base card designs I've ever seen. So we'll have to try to snag a box of that and break it when we're at the National. I think that would be an awesome little podcast episode or something to throw up on YouTube. Do a box of that together.
I was trying to find the salmon of those. I found the red. It's kind of dinged up, but it was $5, so I bought it.
Nice.
The Shadow and the Premier, obviously, I've not found. So
one day it'll happen, dude. One day it'll happen. We're just gonna like get on eBay now, Greg. Get on there. So
I don't know how you do it, Matt. You say you want a card. It's on a podcast like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and then suddenly it appears in your collection in full. It's crazy because I was like the blue one and the red one. They're beautiful, and there are no bonds out there right now. Like they're not super scarce. Maybe people just don't know that there are people out there that want those cards, but I can't find any right now.
Well, speaking of that, Greg, would you be happy enough to show us that amazing card that you have right there? Because we want one. I want one to pop up for sure. So does Alan. So
well, yeah, I'm hoping your guys pop up. This is not my guy, but I did want one. Matt, you talk so much about it that I just wanted to own one to see how cool it is. It is a really cool card. It is the Vladimir Guerrero Quantum Leap. It is a PSA 9. That doesn't really matter, but it is awesome. It looks like it's holographic, die cut, very cool card. I got it it'd have been 2 weeks ago, I guess, but man, that thing shines. It'll blind you if you look at it too long. It's a Vlad. I might take it to the National, see if I can trade it.
You should do that.
Bring it. There's somebody who will trade you for it. I don't know if I can trade you a salmon for it. But
yeah, that's the thing. You bring the right salmon and it's yours. But that's for now. It's mine. I like it. Quantum Leaps are awesome. I wish salmon was in it. I would love to have the Frank. But it's an awesome card.
Well, maybe the mojo will work because it worked with the premiere date, man. I couldn't believe it. I mean, 2 of them went up within a week of that podcast. It's crazy. Or one did, and then another one went up for auction. So, hey guys, it's been awesome to chat with you. As usual, Alan, thanks so much for jumping in this podcast with us. We love your enthusiasm in the group. If I can give you a shout out, he's got to be the best commenter in the whole group. I mean, Greg, you're pretty good. Like you got some good ones, but man, Alan, you've had me rolling on the floor laughing a couple times, just like the way like my brain can't handle the shininess of this card. Like it's awesome, man, and I love that. That makes me even more excited to hang out with you guys and go to the show for 3 days because we're just going to have a blast. Like, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. Did you guys see this? It's going to be awesome. So Alan, thanks again for taking the time out, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be here. It's been an honor to be with you guys. You guys set the tone for the group this is a small community. You guys set a really positive tone, and I'm just trying to, follow in your footsteps. So thanks a lot for having me on.
Absolutely. Greg, any shout outs that you got before we bounce off today?
Tim Salmon, I love you.
Wow. This is what it's going to be like in Chicago, isn't it?
I know, man. We're going to have to listen to Tim Salmon. I'll just pull up the video of him taking strike 3 in 95.
It'll get deleted. I look forward to being at the National with you guys. We're going to do a special podcast at some point.
Yes, we are.
Maybe it'll be at the National, maybe not, but I look forward to it. As always, it's been great hanging out with you guys for the podcast.
Well, if anybody's going to be there, definitely, make a comment in this video when we post it on the group page. We'd love to see who all is going to be there. I know Brant's going to be there. Kyle's going to be there. My arch nemesis. What's up, Kyle? And a few other people from the group I know are going to be there too. So it's going to be awesome for us to be able to meet some of these people in person. So it should be fun. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend and look forward to the next podcast here in a couple weeks. Take care.
Bye.